Hello and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk About Design, the series where I'm not going to tell you what it is because you've probably seen some of the other ones, and rather than spending a minute doing that, let's just hop into the video and let's just start working. So today what we're going to be working on is another dresser that I'm going to be building for our new son. So this video has already come out in real time. I've already built this project, but right now I'm working on designing this project. So it's kind of reverse order. So if things are a little weird, that's why. So if we jump into the file here, you can see what I actually have is a dresser that I built about 2 years ago for my best friends when they were having a kid. And this dresser was actually pretty much the same as the dresser I built for our first son, or not the same, but the same configuration and size. It's worked out really well for us with our first kid. It's worked out really well for them. So I'm going to stick with these same kind of dimensions. And actually, that's one of the questions that I get asked a lot is, people ask me, do I ever use things like the golden rectangle or the golden ratio or whatever it's called to design projects? And I don't. And my advice would be use them as a starting place, but don't necessarily use them over your judgment. Trust your judgment in what looks right. If you use the golden rectangle as a starting point and it looks too squatty or whatever, don't say, oh no, it must be right because it's the golden ratio, so I got to stick with it. Go with what your feeling is over that, but they can be good starting places. Anyway, all that's to say, what I'm going to use for my starting place is the dimensions that I've come up with before that seem to work well for me, so let's just start working off of that. So what I'm going to do is get rid of everything that isn't just the box part of this. So I'm going to delete the doors and the drawers, drawer boxes, and let's see, how tall did I make this one off the ground? 6 inches, I think that's a good height. So I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of this whole base as well. And now we have a good starting spot that's just a box. And if you want to do this too, or you want to know what dimensions I'm using, it is 47 by 27 and a quarter. So just call it 47 by 27. And then let's see, the left side where the drawers are going to go looks like it's about 27 and 3/4. So that's almost a box, surprisingly. And then this part's the rectangle. One of the things that I'm going to change is a little bit with the configuration. Instead of making 3 drawers, I'm going to make it 4 drawers. So I'm going to start off with that. I'm just going to draw a square that's going to fill up this space, make it into a component, and I'm going to come in here and select one of these vertical lines and then divide by 4. And so that's going to give us 4 perfectly even spaced segments if I do that. I could have just cut it in half and cut it in half again. That would have been easy enough. But if you're trying to do 3 or 5 or 7 or 9 or some other crazy odd number, it's a lot easier to use this tool. And there's other reasons you would want to use it, but that's how I'm using it. Okay, so now I have my drawer faces. And actually, this is not going to be quite accurate either because I'm going to have gaps between the carcass and the drawer. So I'm just going to put 1/8 of an inch gaps all the way around. And then in between the actual drawers, I'm going to put a 1/16 on either side to make other 1-inch gaps. Then I can just copy and paste those 2 lines. I think I can probably just multiply that out now. Let's see, times 2. Cool. All right. So now we're good. Go back in here and delete this. So when I go back in and redraw my actual drawer faces now, they're going to be slightly different size. So this one is 6 7/16 of an inch tall. This next one is 6.5. This one's probably going to be 6.5. Yep. And then this last one's probably going to be 6 7/16 again. Yep. Okay. But the thing there is, it's fine. The drawings, they're going to be a little bit different. When you actually go to build this, you're not going to want to go strictly off of these measurements anyway, because you're probably going to have some errors or something that makes it where the box is not the exact size that you're expecting it to be anyway. So you're going to want to measure something like the drawer faces and kind of cut them to fit as you're going. So this is perfectly fine for where we're at right now of just spacing them out. And I'm going to give them their thickness. So I'm just making them, all right, so we'll bring them out 3/4 of an inch now to give them their thickness. Make each one its own component. And then we'll just recess them back in so that they're flush the way that they would be if this were a finished actual build. Okay, and then we can do the same thing here with making a kind of a blank, I guess, for the door. 0.75, and then here we can just go in and make our 1/8 inch gaps. Now I can just, since it'll always reference the last measurement that you use, so I can just double click and it'll move it in 1/8 of an inch now. I'll make that a component. And real quick, actually, let me say before we go any further, so these videos are sponsored by SketchUp, and that's the program that I'm using. I know that's a question that I get asked a lot, is what do I use to design in? And I use SketchUp. That's what I've been using since before I started woodworking. And in fact, it's probably the reason that I got into woodworking was I just happened to find SketchUp and liked it, started building things, eventually got into designing furniture, wanted to see if I could build it. That's kind of the long story short of how I got into this. But anyway, so what I'm using is SketchUp, if you're wondering. And it's a piece of software that you can go get right now. Just Google SketchUp download, you'll find it. There's a browser-based version that you could start using right now, or you can download it. And these videos aren't meant to be tutorials on how to use SketchUp. It's really more about designing. There's plenty of other tutorials out there that will teach you the basics of how to use SketchUp. So, watch one of those if you're just trying to get your bearings. And then when you're watching these, it's really more about how to think about designing, or if you want to follow along on a build, you're more than welcome to do that. Even though I'm kind of moving a little bit faster and not telling you how I do everything, I will occasionally stop and say how I do something if it's a little bit more technical. But yeah, so like I said, these videos are sponsored by SketchUp. So thank you very much, SketchUp. I really appreciate the support, and I appreciate your software because it really does help me in my day-to-day career of designing now. It really works the way that I think, and it's such a valuable tool for me, and it saves me so much time that I would spend in the shop kind of fumbling my way through projects. It really lets me find all the obstacles that I'm going to encounter so that I know what I'm doing when I get out here and I start cutting. And just one other thing, these videos, I'm not using SketchUp in these videos because it's sponsored by SketchUp. If anything, I would say it's the other way around. SketchUp is sponsoring these videos because I use SketchUp. So I started making these videos before, when there was no sponsor attached. People seemed to like them. I knew I wanted to bring it back. I talked to SketchUp to see if that's something they would be interested in, and they were, and here we are. All right, let's get back to designing this thing. Okay, so we have our basic box here built. The next thing, let's go into the base now. So I want to do a different kind of base for this. Something that I want to do in the future is, I guess it's not cabriole style. It's kind of a take on a cabriole style leg. It's a lot more modern and geometrical looking, less kind of free flowing than a normal cabriole leg is. But that's what I want to do for this project. So I'm going to kind of start designing that out now, and let's just see how it goes. So we had a 6-inch gap between the floor. So I'm just going to build myself kind of a 6-inch by 2-inch blank, I guess you'd call it right now. So there you can see it's 2 inches by 2 inches by 6 inches. Let's make that into a component. So what I want to do is, I'm just going to kind of guess at these measurements for the purpose of this drawing. It might end up changing, but I'm going to say that I want like 1.5 inches here. Then I want a 45-degree angle that comes off of that. And then I'm going to want probably 1.5 inches here. And so I can have it come down to, let's say, 1 inch here. So I'm going to do that kind of taper that I normally do. So basically what I'm going to be shooting for is end up with something that's kind of shaped like that. This sort of a shape. But I want it to have, so I want it to be straight or flat against the plane of the bookcase on this face and on this face, and then have this kind of taper on the inside faces. So the way that you do that in SketchUp, I'm going to back up here for a second. I'm going to go into my component and start editing. And I'm going to just draw that exact same shape. So now you can see the two faces that I have. So the way that you do that, you could go like this and kind of cut away at this part and then draw it again on this face and cut away at it. But there's a shortcut that you can use if you use the follow me tool. So let's see, I want it to be cut in this face and this face. So I'm going to highlight those two lines. Then I'm going to get this follow me tool right here. And if I click it, oh, that's the offset tool. Hang on. Okay. There we go. That does it. There's a few extra lines left in there. But now you can see, here, let me get rid of all these guidelines. Now you can see, so I have it angled in here, and I have it angled in here. Let's look at it from like the bottom. There you can kind of see what we did. So it's tapered on the two inside edges, flat on the two outside edges. That might be a little bulky. It's hard to tell right now, but I'm going to leave it like this just for the purposes of designing this project, and let's just keep going with this. So now that we have that, and actually let me say, well, actually, you know what? No. If you want to see how you would cut that, obviously you wouldn't cut that the same way that I just did in SketchUp, but I'll have done it in the video. So just go check out that video, and I'll put a link right here so you can go watch that video if you haven't seen it yet. And it'll show how to cut that piece. But anyway, what we're going to do now is just make 4 of these legs. So I'm just going to pull it over here and flip it along the red axis and bring it back in. And then I'm going to copy that, flip along the green axis, and again. Okay, so now we have our 4 legs, right? Now we're going to want some stretchers. So those will be pretty simple. They're just going to be rectangular. So what is it? 2 inches by 1.5 inches. And we're just going to connect the span. And we can copy that one. We want to flip it along the green axis because we're going to put a detail into it in a second here. Otherwise, it wouldn't really matter. We'll do the same thing on the side real quick. Okay, so now we're looking pretty good. I think it maybe is a little chunky. It's hard to tell, but I'll just err on the side of chunky for now. And once I'm done, if I want to change it, I'll change it. But one thing is, okay, so right now when we're looking at it with lines, it looks okay. But I think in real life, we're going to want to create some separation between the base and the top. I think it's just going to look a little kind of muddled together if we don't. So what I want to do is put a little detail in here. So I'm going to just draw like 1/8 of an inch gap, which is, you know, the size of the kerf of your blade. And what I'm going to do is draw a line here, and I'm going to recess this back like 1/4 of an inch. Whoa, went too far. 1/4 of an inch. 0.25. That's better. And then I'm going to do the same thing right here. That might be too much. We can probably get away with 1/8 of an inch gap, and it would be fine, but it's fine for right now. We can play with all that later. Okay, and so the good thing about making components is now, hang on, there's a plane. I think the plane's far away enough now you can hear me again. So what I was going to say is the good thing about making components is that since I copied this one over here, it did the exact same little detail that we put into it on all 4 of them. So we don't have to sit there and draw it a bunch of times. And that's the same reason that I made components that I flipped here. So we're just going to kind of copy that same little kerf cut in there, pull it back to the same spot. Same thing on these side pieces. Should be in the other one. All right. So there, you don't really see it that much in the drawing, but I think in the finished piece, that's going to be I think it's going to be something really small that actually makes a big difference in the way that the piece comes across in the end. So I'm liking the way that that looks. So we can keep moving on. When I go to build this, I don't know if I'm going to want more structure. You know, I could throw a couple more stretchers over here in the center that you're not going to see. So I'm not going to worry about them at this point. All right, so for handles, I'm actually going to use these metal handles that I used on one of the last time that I built this. So I'm not sure of the dimensions of them right now, but I'm just going to kind of play around for a second and draw that. So I'm going to go into fast motion and do that, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so this is close enough for now. This is probably not anywhere close to what it actually is dimensionally, but it gets the point across, so I'm fine with that. So let's go ahead and get these guys over here to my actual cabinet. So now we got to figure out where we want to place these, and you could do this later on in the build. But for now, I'm going to just put these guys dead center and see how I feel about them. So I'm going to copy it from one side to the other and then just hit divide by 2, and that'll put one of them right in the center. I can delete these two. And then I'm going to copy them down onto each drawer face by referencing the corner. Okay, so we have those ones. Now the question becomes, where do we put this last one that's going to go on the door? The door is going to be hinged on the right side. So we're going to want it somewhere over either maybe something like this, or we also could flip it, actually. Let's just see what that looks like real quick. Okay, so I think I like it vertical, or that I like it this way better. So it's going to go somewhere over here. But the question becomes where. Sometimes what I like to do when I'm stuck with something like this is just kind of play around with a couple ideas that maybe make a little bit of sense. I'll reference some other kind of measurement in the drawing and just place it somewhere and just see what it looks like. And if it feels good, then I'll move forward with it. And if not, then I'll try the next thing. So one idea is to just put it right there in the corner, which I think looks okay. But let's just see. So for instance, if I go from the corner over here to how far that is in, it's in 13 5/8 of an inch. So if I were to come here and draw something at 13 5/8 of an inch. Let's just try this and see what it feels like. Because this is still where it would be far enough over to, to work for the door. And I think I like that better as it becomes a more abstract shape. I don't know, that looks more even to me, because basically if you were to get rid of everything, so now there's a rhyme kind of with these. These are coming in the same amount from either edge. I don't know. I'm probably overthinking it, but that's what I'm going to do. And I guess the whole point of that is to say, if you're stuck, just kind of reference some other dimension that's in your model or some angle that's in your model and see if you can find some cohesiveness with that. And if it works, awesome. And if it doesn't, go back to the drawing board and try something else. But I guess that's pretty much about it for this one. Yeah, if you have any questions or ideas or anything with these videos, let me know. Let me know if you like these kind of videos, if you think they're helpful, if there's something in particular that I do that you think would make for a good topic in these kind of videos. Definitely let me know in the comments. Yeah, and other than that, I guess I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.